According to the IMF, Nigeria's infrastructure stock of about 20% of GDP remains far below the 70% international benchmark. But with the trillions of naira in system liquidity and yields at sub-zero on government treasuries, why is the country failing to attract this easy money as investments into agriculture or infrastructure and industrialization? Omotola Abimbola is the macro and fixed income analyst at Chapel Hill Denham, and he joins us with some analysis or insights into this. Good evening, my friend. It's good to see you.
Same here, bossing. Good evening.
Thank you. Your system, your financial system, is awash with liquidities, but we'll get to that shortly. What are the main drawbacks for Nigeria, actually, in bridging the country's infrastructure gap?
If you ask anybody this question, the easiest answer would be that we have a very constrained fiscal space. And we can look at this even by looking at the 2021 budget proposal that was submitted by Mr. President to the National Assembly very recently. So in that budget, we intend to spend about 13 trillion naira in 2021, and just about 28% of that, that is 3.6 trillion, is meant for capital expenditure. And if you look at that as a ratio of GDP, it's just about 2.5% of GDP. Now, that 1% of GDP is barely enough to even replace the depreciation rate of infrastructure stock in Nigeria, to talk about even expanding the scope of infrastructure in the country. So that shows that, very, very importantly, that the federal budget is unable to actually bridge the massive infrastructure gap that we have in the country today. But if you also consider the fact that there are several ways of financing infrastructure in the world today, and we can look at, so many other countries that have gone through this in the past, from Korea to Chile, to the Marshall Plan that we had in Europe in the past. They use various alternative ways of financing infrastructure, and nothing says that Nigeria's infrastructure has to be financed, just by public budgets alone, which is very, very constrained at the moment. So I would say that it's also a problem of, lack of vision, and also, lack of ambitious planning, to do what it takes to actually finance infrastructure. So in the world we are living in today, it's a world, dominated by so much liquidity, all over the world, not just Nigeria, and capital just flows to where the best opportunities are. So if you can structure bankable projects in Nigeria, right, that's available, for fund managers, both locally and externally, I'm sure that if the projects are bankable enough, and we're able to resolve some of the macroeconomic, instability issues that we have at the moment, such as, high inflation, and also, lack of liquidity in the FX market, capital will definitely flow, to all these opportunities. We just need to have a very grand ambition and also, vision to back it up.
So what role do you think that the monetary policy environment can play in the availability of funds for infrastructure investment?
The central bank plays a very major role in any economy because they control the flow, of credits in the economy. And in trying to determine what the monetary policy choice should be, ideally, central bank should consider, so many variables, such as, the economic growth backdrop, inflation expectation, the external accounts balance, etc., in determining what the appropriate, monetary policy should be. And but we know that, in Nigeria, we have followed this traditional method, of central banking over the past years. It has given us some measure of success in some ways. We had a period, of, very low inflation at some point, but we still have not been able to actually, crack this problem of, weak infrastructure stock. So in a way, it goes, way beyond central banking alone. It also involves, questioning the fiscal authorities, who are actually the policymakers that are mainly saddled with the responsibility, of implementing, fiscal policy, and also, creating appropriate structures, for creating bankable projects for infrastructure in Nigeria. So central bank plays a big role generally in the economy, but when it comes to infrastructure, it goes beyond central banking alone. So it also, involves fiscal policy. It involves, structural reforms. by implementing the ease of doing business reforms that will be necessary to enable capital formation in any economy.
So if you look at let's quickly bring in the pension fund system with trillions of naira in assets and low yield, sub-zero interest rate at the fixed income space. Why are these funds not flowing into infrastructure investment?
So like I said initially, capital flows where the opportunities are. And if you look at the fixed income, landscape today, we're in a period of extraordinary, low interest rates. In fact, what I call a record, low interest rate environment. And despite that, we have seen, fund managers, still staying heavily exposed to traditional asset classes, such as, fixed income and equities. And that just shows that we haven't been able to develop an alternative alternative investment market that is big or large enough to absorb all the liquidity coming from the PFAs. But in some ways, we also have some victories recently. Chapel Hill Denham, for instance, is the manager of the largest, listed infrastructure fund in Africa, Nigerian International Debt Fund, and it draws, its fund from, fund managers, including the pension fund administrators, and other institutional and even retail investors in Nigeria, and even externally, in fact. But that's just a drop in the ocean because, there is still, we have a very massive infrastructure deficit that some have estimated to be in excess of $100 billion. And Chapel Hill Denham, still has, way less than $500 million invested in the country today in terms of infrastructure funds. So I think we need to see, more fund managers actually come out with innovative solutions, that will enable, the local fund managers, the vast and institutional investors to invest in bankable, infrastructure projects locally, ranging from power sector, to transport, to road infrastructure, logistics, etc.
Omotola Abimbola at Chapel Hill Denham, in charge of micro and fixed income markets. Thank you very much. I'm sure you're thinking where the linkage should be between infrastructure and industrialization, really. Are they mutually exclusive? 1 minute?
Indeed, they are mutually exclusive because we live in a very, very competitive world. And if you plan to industrialize, that means you're going to be competing, with, very, very aggressive markets, from Asia to North America, etc. And these are countries with very, very advanced, level of infrastructure that can compete in a global economy. So for Nigeria to be able to industrialize, we must have enough infrastructure stock, that could lower the cost of production for Nigerian manufacturers so that we can compete with the outside world and have an export-led industrialization rather than the current import substitution industrialization that Nigeria is currently implementing.
Omotola Abimbola of Chapel Hill Denham, thank you so much for your time this evening. Enjoy your evening.
Thank you.